Blog Talk Radio.
And our special guest tonight, Meeko Onrubia, noted DJ at Doom and Gloom, and tonight's subject, ghosts. I just want to preface tonight's topic by mentioning that Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, has returned to TV with her movie Macabre, syndicated around the nation. I don't know if you remember her in her black gown, critiquing various horror and sci-fi films. Well, I have been critiquing the same films on my program, Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion, in my Cosmic Theater segment. My critiques, of course, are much shorter, but I've been posting them on YouTube. For example, I just posted the giant Gila monster on YouTube because she's going to be covering that tomorrow night on her program. So you can compare the two versions. Check mine out at either under Cosmic Theater on YouTube or under Dr. Ruhl, R-U-E-H-L. Now, regarding the topic of ghosts, I've been asked often if I've ever seen a ghost, personally. I have not. However, when I was a youngster, my mother had a very significant ghostly encounter. I was working on homework in the living room. My dad was at work, and she was dancing in the hallway of our apartment. It was an early evening, I'd say about 8:30 p.m., when suddenly materializing in front of her was a dwarf in a Western outfit. And she immediately recognized it as her father, although he was of normal height and never expressed any interest in coming out west. He was a Pittsburgher. She hoped that she was just imagining this and turned away, but when she looked back, the image was still there grinning at her, although it never said anything. Then slowly, that image dematerialized, and of course she was very upset. The very next morning, we received a telegram from Pittsburgh telling us that her father had died overnight, and it appears this was a final manifestation that he made before her and before he would go on to his just desserts, whatever they might be. But when I mentioned this on the Jimmy Kimmel show, Jimmy said that's the most ridiculous thing he ever heard. Now, I know my mother was not imagining this or fibbing about it. This was something that happened. And I think there are a lot of people out there who've had similar experiences with the paranormal and specifically with ghosts, but they hesitate to tell anyone because they're afraid of being ridiculed. So with the various cases we see on TV and on the Internet, I submit to you that that's just the tip of the iceberg, that there are a tremendous number of individuals who have had such encounters, such as my mother. Now, Benny, I believe you've had a few encounters with the supernatural. Is that not true?
Yeah.
Benny?
By the way? Yeah, can you hear me good? Doctor.
Can you hear me, Benny?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me just fine? Not
very well.
Okay.
I can barely hear you. Speak up.
Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. Yes, my encounters, I'm not sure if you would call them ghosts. I'm not sure how you would label it. What I call them is, you could call them aliens or interdimensional beings. But probably the first experience I had, we'll probably tell all of them, or the three of them. That way the one I want to tell will make sense. But I would say I was about 5 years old, and maybe 4. I hadn't started school yet. I was in my crib bed, and I seen these three beings, probably around 3 feet tall. You know, they had the classical gray type description, except these creatures, one was red, one was green, one was blue. And I called them Spider-Mans for a long time. And their skin seemed as if they had the brightness of an LED light. You know, like, for example, like the red one, it looked as if, you know, his skin or whatever, his suit would light up red, you know, and they all three had the brightness of an LED light. And anyway, I remember they didn't scare me, but there was a period where I started crying and my dad was holding me. But anyway, when I got older, probably about 19 years old, I had woke up in my bed and I had seen this being levitating over my face, probably maybe 6 inches from my face. You know, and I said to myself, well, this is an angel, you know, just watching over me or whatever. And it startled me, but it didn't really scare me. It just startled me. I wasn't ready to see that. And so not long after that, I was working 2 jobs, and I had become very sick and dehydrated. And I had never been dehydrated before. So being dehydrated, I didn't know what was going on. I just didn't know why I was really tired. I was very sleepy and very weak. So anyway, I come home, I go to bed, and I get up probably about 2 in the morning. I go upstairs. As I walk through the living room of my parents' house, I get ready to faint. And if I had fainted, I would have hit my mom's stuff, and I would have hurt myself. So I laid down on the floor and allowed myself to go ahead and pass out. And I was being awakened and picked up off the floor by my mother, as she was, you know, petting on me and loving on me and picking me up. And as she goes off back to her room, you know, I go on into the restroom. And it was probably a handful of years later that I asked my mother, I said, what made you realize that I had passed out on the floor that night? And she told me, she said, I didn't know you passed out. And at that moment, I knew that this was an interdimensional being, you know. That I was seeing my mother because the first time I seen the being, it startled me. So this time I was actually seeing my mother. But one instance that really was scary, that messed with me, I was probably around 8 years old, and I had been sick, and my brother had come to me. And he woke me up and said in this very, very deep voice, he said, I am the devil. And so later, like the next day, I told my mom what he had done. And, you know, she was talking to him about it, and he denies that he did that. So it's either that he was playing a joke or this was maybe an interdimensional being trying to mess with me, or perhaps it was a ghost. I'm not really sure, but still to this day, if I ask my brother about it, he will deny that he did this.
So these entities or metamorphs that can take on different forms.
Yeah, you know, we have the reptilians and all sorts of, you know, it's, so mine, I guess, is morally, I guess, along the lines of aliens, not so much like experiences with the dead. I've not really had any of those experiences, except, well, there is one. It was kind of an experience, I guess. I had a friend I went to school with, and what was crazy was, I don't know why I said this, but I told him, his name was Matt Duncan, and we always called him Duncan. So I told him, I said, if you ever die, I said, I'm going to come to your funeral. I mean, we were like, I was a senior and he was like a junior in high school. And so after I graduated, he actually died.
Oh, shit.
And I felt so bad because in the band, I played in the band in high school, and I was the section leader, and I was supposed to hand him over my section leadership. I was supposed to give him the opportunity to be a section leader after I left, but I ended up giving the job to somebody else. So I kind of did him dirty, and then he dies on me, and I didn't go to his funeral. So I beat myself up for a long time about this. And so I had a dream one night that he come to me and he forgave me, and he told me that he was okay in this dream. So
what did he die of? He must have been a young man.
Yeah, he was. I had graduated, and he was a senior. You know, he was like one grade under me, and he died. You know, just didn't even get to finish high school.
Well, how did he die? What was the cause of death?
His family said he had heart trouble. They didn't know it, but they had found out that he had had some heart trouble.
Oh.
Yeah, died in his sleep. Yeah,
well,
and what got me was, huh?
Go ahead.
It still bothers me a little bit today if I think about it, because he was very passionate about playing drums, and I was the section leader over the drum line, and I was supposed to hand my job down to him when I left, but I gave it to somebody else. It was mean of me to do that to him, and then he dies on me. So here it is. We had this, dirty slate, I guess you could say, and then he dies. I never got to talk to him about it. I never got really that forgiveness from him, and that bothered me. And then I had that dream where he came to me and told me that he forgave me and everything was okay and that he was all right. His dad was actually a pastor of a church. Yeah, so he grew up in a good family and stuff. We was friends all through school. We played music together, and yeah. But like I said, that's probably about as my only ghost experience, I guess you could say. But my other ones are more, I guess you would say, encounters, like alien encounters.
Right. Well, one theory is that at least some ghosts may be indeed interdimensional beings, either from, let's say, from a parallel universe, or perhaps they're advanced astronauts who are being teleported to our planet, but in the teleportation process may not achieve full corporeality, and that's why they appear as these translucent entities. At least some ghosts could be that, and I think what you're talking about certainly fits in with that. But I was going to mention, I love that show Ghost Whisperer. Of course, it has been canceled, but we're especially in the end where she's uniting the living with the dead so they can have their final confrontation and forgiveness and talk of what they wanted to do before the person died. I always love those end scenes. I thought they should have been longer. Did you like Ghost Whisperer?
Yes, I did actually. It got, I remember the last, I don't know if you'd said the last season, there was a reason, I can't remember exactly why I quit watching it, but I got out of watching it when, when her husband, when he had another body or something like that.
Yeah, he went into another body.
Somebody else, and he was looking at me. Do what?
Right. And then the final season,
I got it.
He was 5 years advanced. He's now a doctor, and they have a 5-year-old son who's also psychic.
Yeah, I kind of got out. Does the show still come on?
No, it's been canceled, but it's rerun on the Sci-Fi Channel and possibly Oxygen. Sci-Fi Channel re-airs it on Mondays, I believe.
The guy, the scientist guy, the really hyper scientist, do you remember him on the show?
Yes.
I actually wanted to see him and, what's her name, hook up. When he left, I actually wanted Jim to die, and her and him, because I liked him a lot better.
Oh.
But it never did work out like that. That's what I would root for all the time, because I liked him a lot better.
Well, he's more interesting.
Yeah.
Let's ask our guest, Meeko, if he's had any ghostly experiences. Are you there, Meeko?
I believe we've lost him. I was looking at the switchboard, and his number fell off. It was there, and then it disappeared. So, Meeko, if you're listening, I'm here looking at the switchboard if you want to call back in. So if you're listening, if you want to call back in. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties with that.
Was he there at the beginning?
Yeah, he was there at the beginning. He actually called in a little bit before the show, actually.
Yeah, but
and
did you
somehow
speak
or
to him?
another, after the show got started.
Did you speak to him at all, Benny?
No, just on the internet. I didn't get to speak to him on the phone or anything. But he had called in, and I'd unmuted his mic, and then he just, I guess it somehow or another got dropped.
Maybe
so Meeko, if you're listening.
Him. Okay, well, our guest may or may not return.
But the phone lines are open, so if there's anybody that does want to call, feel free to give us a call, jump in on the conversation, share us, your stories, if you have any stories.
Okay, well, I'll recount the one about the Big Liz that I presented on the Dr. Will show on the internet, which you put together. And this was back in 1864 in Maryland, and the plantation owner was fearful that the Confederates would overrun his plantation. So he gathered together all his valuables, money and jewels, and put them in a huge chest. But